Hello everybody. This is the first in what will be a series of videos. These will be a little tricky, I guess, because you're going to have to absorb it in a fairly quick amount of time. So I'm going to try to give you basically as little information as I can, but enough for you to get the work done that we need you to get done. So that may be a little frustrating, and you will certainly have questions as we work, which is totally normal, but as you're working, I will be there to help you with that. So here I'm set up in Unity, and we have several different parts of the screen that I wanted to point out. Up here, I'm sorry, for each section you'll notice there's a little tab. This is the scene tab, the game tab, timeline, hierarchy. The scene view is your view of the world, and that's where you'll get your work done, right? So I can actually click with my mouse and select different items in here. So this is a light, and this is a light, this is the floor object, this is a camera, and I can select on any of them to do it. You'll work in here almost exclusively, not almost exclusively, but pretty close. The way that you get around in this window is if you want to zoom in and out, you can use the mouse wheel to do that. If you want to rotate your view to look at, let's say I wanted to look at it from the left side of this dancer character here. What I'm doing is I'm holding down the Alt key and then clicking and dragging. And I can go left to right or up and down with this. So I can look at this from any angle. I can look at it from the top, moving into different positions. Really cool. Roll, zoom in, zoom out. All right, if you get lost, if you zoom, I'll show you the one other control that might get you in trouble. Go back to where I was. If you hold on Alt, click with the left button, you rotate or orbit. If you click with the middle mouse button, you will drag, which can be useful. You'll definitely use the other two more often. If you get to a point where you don't really know what's going on, what you can do is select an object, like let's say the character, and hit the F key with your mouse over here. And it frames it and puts it in. Then you can say zoom out a little and orbit. You could select the floor, like you were, oh wait, where am I? I don't know. I don't even know what to click on. Cool thing, over here to the right of the scene window is what's called the hierarchy. This is all the elements that are in the scene view, they just are in a list. So you could come over here, click the floor, move your mouse back over here, hit F, and now it frames or fits the mouse to your camera view. This will be awkward at first, right? It just takes a little while to get used to it. So middle mouse wheel, roll the middle mouse wheel to zoom, hold Alt, and click and drag with the left mouse button to orbit, Alt, middle mouse button to pan, and if you get into a little bit of a panic, you could hit the F button. One other thing that you can use to help you get around is up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's this little view thing that shows you the X, Y, and Z axes of your world. So front to back is Z, left to right is X, and up and down is Y. So you can also use these, like for example, let's say you got upside down with your view here. If I click the green part of Y, which will be the top, I'm now looking at it directly from the top. And from here, I can Alt orbit into position. X from one side, this gives me back to the front. This gets me back to the left side. This gets me back to the top. You can also click and click on this middle to go in and out of perspective, which you probably won't need to do very much. Okay, so plan on those being a little awkward as you get started, as you figure out how to move around. You can select items either here in the scene window or here in the hierarchy window. So again, these are essentially the same view. They just show you the items in a little bit of a different way. The items in your scene include some camera items. So here's a camera. I will explain how this camera works a little later. There's a camera target, which is the object that the camera actually looks at. So if I click it and drag it around, you may notice right off the bat, if you click the camera and move it, it doesn't move. And that's because this camera is actually controlled by what's called a virtual camera, which I'll explain a little bit. So if you actually want to move the camera, click Virtual Cam 1, move that, and the other camera will ride with it. We have a sky and fog volume, which lets us set some visual effects, and you probably won't have to do anything with that. And then notice down here we've got some grayed out items. Anything in the Unity window can be made active or inactive. If I wanted to make Granny active, I could click on her, and right here next to her name in the inspector shows us details and allows us to change details about each object. I can actually check this little checkbox next to the name, and that makes it active or inactive. You can see it just turning on and off right here. So right now I have the ones that you chose for your projects inactive. I just have this one called, I called them Demo Do, that I also grabbed there, that is active. All right, we've got an item with lights. You'll notice some of these have turn down arrows, then they let you get at children. So the characters, the avatars, they have their mesh and then also their bones. You probably won't need to touch any of those. There's an item here called lights, and actually inside of here, there is the side lights here and here, and then there's kind of a down light, right? And I may add a few more lights. I'm going to just give you a basic scene to be able to work with. You may not need to touch that. And then the scenic elements, which here in the demo just includes this floor object, and there could be a few more objects maybe for you to play with when we get to working on things next week. All right, so then the last thing in here is called the timeline, and that's where we assemble all the things that we want to animate, and that's this window right here. When you are doing your project, this timeline window will actually not be here. It'll actually be on a separate second monitor, which just makes it so much easier to work with because you have a ton of room to be able to put everything. It can be a little cramped on one window. So I've got it set up here with a split view. And to the left of it is the game view. And this is what it looks like through our camera. So if I come up here and I grab the camera target, for example, and move it left and right, up and down, you'll notice that it manipulates what I see in this view. So this view down here should be considered your final output, like what it would look like to an audience. And one other thing that you may notice that is that the camera target, I guess you can't see it in the scene. I've made it so that you can't see it down here. It doesn't draw. So it wouldn't be in your final output because you wouldn't want a big giant sphere necessarily in the middle of your world. Okay. The last window I want to talk about here probably is the project window. So this project window is all the elements you have brought into your project. So this includes a folder with all the avatars in it. Demo Do, Jody, Michelle, Granny, right? It includes a folder with materials. It includes the motion capture data. So here I've got Aries test data that we did in class the other day that we'll work with as we're trying stuff out today. And we've got a few other folders. You won't need to touch too many of these. The only one that you might need to is in the scenes folder. I'll make a scene for each of you to work with. So the scene I'm working with now is called a character prep. Just using it for the demo. I'll probably have a scene with the name of your team or something on it that will make sense to you. So scenes are used to organize different groups of data and elements. So if you're making a video game, for example, you might have a different scene for each different level of your video game. All right, I'm just looking at my time. We're coming up on 8 minutes on this first video. I think I'll keep going on this one. Okay, so basic object manipulation. If you may not have to do much of this, only a little bit. If you click an object, for example, this light, you can use these arrows. If it doesn't show arrows, you can come over here and click this arrow tool. And you pretty much want to leave it on that tool. You can move it up and down, change its position. So if I move it here, you can see that that stops hitting the floor. It's hitting a bit of the floor. And our avatar rotate tool allows you to rotate this up and down in space. You can do that with any of these objects. I don't expect we'll need to do a lot of that. These little squares here let you, for example, adjust how big the beam is, and this kind of adjusts how far, whoops, I didn't click quite on it, how far this beam shoots. You can see it actually comes up a little short of the end of the platform, which is actually kind of interesting. I'm going to do that with the other one too. Okay. All right, I think that that's probably enough to get started with, and then I'll keep adding items as we go along. All right, actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to stop here, and in the next video, we'll start putting together a motion sequence.